Imagine walking into your dark garage on a freezing Tuesday morning, coffee in hand, only to find your $80,000 Mercedes GLE squatting aggressively on its front tires like a wounded rhinoceros. You hit the unlock button on your key fob, and instead of a sleek mechanical hum waking the vehicle up, you hear a frantic, wheezing rattle vibrating from directly behind the front bumper, immediately followed by the distinct, acrid smell of melting plastic. Your luxury SUV has not suffered a freak breakdown. It is executing a mathematically predictable collapse. They convinced you that riding on a highly complex cushion of electronically controlled air was the absolute pinnacle of German engineering. It isn't. It is a highly synchronized countdown timer designed to drag you back to the dealership service bay by force. The luxury air ride is dead. But the architecture of this system is fiercely unforgiving. We are going to rip open the wheel wells and expose the microscopic rubber tears mathematically guaranteed to leave you stranded on the shoulder. We will dissect the proprietary software trap that turns a simple leaky hose into a catastrophic module replacement. And we will uncover the specific suspension components that veteran mechanics actively despise. Welcome to the architecture of the pneumatic extortion loop. This is where the pavement mechanics turn hostile. To understand how this vehicle fails on all four corners, we must break down the four engineered failure points of the AIRMATIC system, starting directly at the wheels. On the showroom floor, they seduced you with glossy digital displays showing the GLE effortlessly gliding over alpine roads and automatically lowering its chassis for optimal highway aerodynamics. But the hidden choke point sits completely exposed inside the wheel arch. Look closely at the primary air strut bladders mounted at all four corners. The exact cheap material choice here is a non-reinforced, paper-thin synthetic rubber sleeve that is aggressively folded over a hard plastic internal piston. As you drive your daily commute, heavy road grit, metallic brake dust, and microscopic gravel kick up and embed themselves directly into the delicate fold of that rubber bladder. Every single time the heavy SUV hits a pothole and the suspension compresses, it violently grinds that abrasive debris deep into the thin rubber wall. The material dry rots, flexes, and eventually tears right through. You will park at the grocery store, and within 20 minutes, you will hear a sharp, violent hiss of compressed air forcefully escaping from the front right wheel well, while the entire chassis aggressively sags down onto the suspension bump stops. You are staring at an upper thousands repair bill just to replace a glorified rubber balloon that could never survive basic road debris. We keep heavy-duty suspension braces permanently staged by the lifts because we refuse to let a failing pneumatic bag trap a heavy chassis on our equipment overnight. The abrasive grit always wins. The cascade of destruction accelerates rapidly from there. The second failure point is the main pneumatic valve block. The showroom seduction is that sleek, aluminum-trimmed toggle switch on your center console, letting you command the ride height with the push of a button. But the hidden choke point is the placement of the distribution block itself, tucked away behind the right fender, entirely exposed to massive temperature swings. When those primary rubber struts begin their microscopic leaking, the system desperately tries to compensate. The air compressor forcefully ingests raw ambient air, loaded with atmospheric humidity, directly into the lines. That heavy moisture completely bypasses the saturated desiccant beads and pools inside the valve block's microscopic brass solenoids, creating a thermodynamic nightmare. In freezing weather, that trapped condensation literally freezes solid inside the metal housing. The internal valves violently jam open. You will be accelerating down the interstate when the rear left corner aggressively shoots up to its maximum height, while the front right completely collapses, throwing the entire rolling catastrophe into a terrifying, diagonally crippled limp that physically shakes your teeth loose over every pavement seam. Expect to drain the mid-hundreds from your checking account for a tiny, rotting block of aluminum. Why would engineers expose sensitive pneumatic distribution valves to raw atmospheric moisture without a serviceable, heavy-duty water trap? They weaponize the atmospheric humidity. This triggers the absolute worst mechanical death spiral. The third failure point is the air compressor pump itself. The whisper-quiet operation was a major selling point, promising invisible leveling without the harsh mechanical clatter of legacy 4x4 systems. But the hidden choke point is absurd. The pump is severely undersized, utilizing a cheap, unfinned electric motor buried behind the front bumper, totally suffocated by plastic splash shields. Because the torn struts and frozen valve block are constantly bleeding vital air pressure, the vehicle's central computer commands this tiny compressor to run continuously just to keep the chassis off the asphalt. It was mathematically engineered for short, 30-second bursts, not continuous heavy duty. The internal piston ring physically melts from the relentless friction, and the electric armature bakes its own copper windings. You will notice a thick, dark cloud of burning electrical ozone bleeding directly through the front grille, followed by a violent mechanical grinding sound right before the pump violently seizes into a solid block of scorched metal. You are looking at a heavy thousands extraction just to restore the baseline air pressure required to drive home. Sweep the floor under the workbenches of any veteran European specialty shop, and you will find a graveyard of scorched, melted compressor pumps waiting for the scrap iron truck. The pump burns itself alive. The structural logic fundamentally breaks down here. The fourth and final failure point lies in the ride height sensors. The adaptive damping interface relies on constant road surface monitoring to provide that buttery, smooth highway cruise. But look at the control arms. The entire digital architecture relies on a cheap potentiometer bolted to the suspension via flimsy, ball-jointed plastic linkages the exact thickness of a wooden pencil. Winter road salt and corrosive grime pack heavily into the microscopic plastic sockets. The tiny ball joint seizes completely solid. When the suspension inevitably travels over a massive speed bump, the rigid plastic linkage physically snaps in half under the strain. The computer instantly receives a dead voltage signal. The dashboard instantly illuminates with a blinding red warning glare, while the system aggressively vents all remaining air in a panic protocol, violently dropping the entire frame onto the heavy metal bump stops with a sickening, spine-compressing thud. A few $100s in fragile plastic arms completely immobilizes your $80,000 asset. The digital panic breaks everything. Now the administrative shakedown fully engages. When the pneumatic extortion loop activates, you enter the meticulously designed dealership gauntlet. Step 1. The service advisor mandates an astronomical diagnostic fee just for a technician to spray soapy water on a torn rubber bag. Step 2. The parts department aggressively refuses to sell the isolated air bladder, forcing you to purchase the entirely assembled, overpriced strut tower. Step 3. They extract a mandatory factory software calibration tax just to tell the main computer that the new strut exists. Step 4. You drive away fully knowing the other three corners are actively rotting and mathematically guaranteed to blow out next month. You are financing a multi-stage structural collapse. The math is designed to break your resolve. You must bypass this engineered hostage situation completely. Next time the chassis drops, defend your wallet with this exact counterstrike checklist. Rip out the entire factory air system. Order a heavy steel coil spring kit. Install thick mechanical gas-charged shock absorbers. Bypass the electronic suspension control module. Embrace the slightly firmer analog highway ride. Never finance a fragile rubber balloon again. That is the only path to true ownership. Stop trading reliable metal components for highly degradable plastic and heavily pressurized air. We are going to keep tearing these sophisticated traps apart and revealing the cheap components hiding behind the premium luxury badge. If you are tired of being held hostage by corporate repair monopolies and engineered failure points, hit subscribe and join the audit. The pneumatic extortion loop doesn't care about your commute. It only cares about clearing your bank account.